This is Jacob Fry with FryTech IT Services. This is a video series that I'm going to create in installing all the components into a desktop computer that I'm trying to refurbish. In the earlier video, I did an intro of all the components and everything about it. In this video, I'm going to be prepping the motherboard to install into the case. I'm going to install the processor onto the board, the heatsink and heatsink fan onto that, and then installing the RAM on it as well, or in it as well. So here is the motherboard. This is an Intel Core 2 Duo board. It's a socket LGA775. I'm not sure of the specs of the processor or anything, but that's not really that big of a deal because it's a lot older machine. I'm just trying to get a working Windows 7 machine out of this. It should be fairly easy to do. On this, you're just going to take this clip here and you're just going to pull it towards you, pop it up, and that's going to allow you to open up this piece of metal which holds your processor down. Now, this particular processor right here, it's got two ways that you know you're putting it in correctly. Always try to hold the processor, never touch the top part here, and always make sure that you are grounded. You can wear wristbands and everything, but I've grounded myself and I've never had any issues with any of that. But the best thing would be to buy one of the static wristbands or the static discharge pads. But if you see on this processor, there's two little keys right here, or two little indentions on the plastic that shows you how to put it in. Also, there's a little arrow right here, which if you look on the bottom, there is a missing pin where that arrow is. And if you look down here on the motherboard, you can see that right here in this corner, or you maybe should be able to see that in this corner right here, there's a missing pin and there's two little pieces of plastic here. So the processor, the arrow is going to go down to this corner here with the slots pointed that way. So I'm just going to lay that right in. All you do is set it in, drop it into place, move it over just a little bit, make sure it's locked in, put that piece of metal down, clamp down on it, and there you go. You're ready to go. Now at this point you would normally put heatsink compound on this or clean this old heatsink compound on and put more on it. I just took this apart, and it's an older processor. I'm not too worried about it. I've put many machines together without putting new heatsink compound on there, and it's been fine. And since I'm not really using to look to do much with this machine or really resell this machine, I'm not worried about it. It should be just fine. But normally you would clean the heatsink compound off the bottom of this, all this gray stuff, and off of here, and you'd put another dab of here so that you could lay this on there. Well, once you do that, you just take the heatsink, which really goes on this way, and screws down into these 4 screw holes, and you just lay it right on top and squish that heatsink compound. And then you just take a standard Phillips head screwdriver, and what I would do is you work it into the 4 corners here. You go from one corner to the opposite corner as you screw down, and if you have heatsink compound on there that you're trying to get to spread out correctly, that spreads it out the best. Also, if you're putting heatsink compound on there, you do not want to have any holes in the heatsink compound. That can cause a hole to form in the center of the heatsink compound, which can cause a heat pocket, and that heat pocket can cause major issues with processors. You don't want the heat being distributed not unequally on there. So that heatsink compound also allows all the heat to come up to this heatsink correctly and get dispersed away from the processor, and that's the whole purpose of it. Now, screwing this down, there's actually a metal plate on the other side of this motherboard that this is screwing to. And sometimes these screw down into the cases and actually lock the motherboard down in the case. But this particular model, it doesn't do that. And I think that has to do with the socket 775. I think most all of them are like this, or all of them might be like this. So once you have all 4 of those tightened down, this is now locked into the motherboard, and it's screwed down on those 4 screws. And now that that's locked down and your processor's on your board, you're going to want to put your heatsink. So this heatsink, there's actually 4 tabs here that this goes on, and the screws go into those tabs. So all you're going to want to make sure is that you can get to your fan connection here. So right here works just fine, and that reaches. So from here, you also want to make sure your fan's blowing the correct direction. The way I do it is you can look on here, and there's actually 2 arrows on this side. I'm not sure if that's visible or not, but it tells you the air goes this way and the blades rotate that way. And the way that I do it is you always look at the sticker here, and the air always goes out from the sticker. So lay that on there, and then you've got 4 screws, 4 Phillips head screws. Get screw down into this. Another good thing to do if you're screwing into plastic is once you get this lined up is you back up just a little bit, like you're unscrewing the screw until it drops into place, and then you go forward. And that makes sure that you don't strip the holes out or get it in the wrong position so that it ends up stripping that hole out. Just put a good amount of pressure on it and screw it down. Ooh. Always got to drop one of them. Once you do that, you plug in your fan. Don't want to forget to plug in your fan. A lot of boards warn you if your processor fan's not on. Some of them won't even come on. Some of them it'll pop in the BIOS and tell you it's not on. Now the next thing I'm going to install, and the last thing I'm going to install in this particular video, is the RAM. All you do is for the RAM, it is keyed to where you got one side that's shorter than the other side, and it's the same on here. Normally you'd look up your motherboard manual and see how these DIMMs are set up to see where you need to start. Some of them like to start on DIMM 2 and DIMM 4. Most of them start on DIMM 1. I'm pretty sure this is set up DIMM 1, DIMM 2, DIMM 3, DIMM 4. And it's DIMM 1 and DIMM 2 that's set up. And especially if you have dual channel RAM, sometimes this plastic will be colored, or the plastic's colored on the clips. And that means dual channel needs to go in these right here so that it can work as dual channel RAM. So all you do on this is just slide it straight down into the slot and push on both sides, and it clicks right into place, and that's it. So that's the preparation for the motherboard, and in the next video I'm going to actually install this motherboard and some of the other components in it. So hopefully you learned something from this video, and hopefully it'll allow you to be able to take your own motherboard and get it set up to be able to put into your own computer. So please remember to visit me at www.frytechit.com.